All right, let's dive right into this explainer and demystify the Virginia DMV's disabled parking placard system. We're going to track the whole journey, from the initial medical need all the way to legal enforcement. Whether you're navigating this maze for a family member or you're just fascinated by how state bureaucracies balance public accessibility with intense anti-fraud security, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to look directly at the statutory code and those hidden operational guidelines to see how this all actually works behind the scenes. So here's our roadmap for today. We're breaking down this complex web of state code into 5 quick parts: decoding the placard colors, the medical certification gateway, the dual-track renewal system, special plates and veterans, and finally, rules, enforcement, and penalties. Let's get right into step 1. Section 1, decoding the placard colors. Let's check out how the DMV actually classifies these specific credentials. Okay, so not all placards are created equal. Which one do you actually need? Well, this is kind of the first hurdle a lot of folks face. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all deal. The DMV uses a highly specific visual system so that law enforcement and parking officials know immediately what kind of authorization you hold. Take a look at how this breaks down into 3 distinct legal categories. First up, you've got the blue placard for permanent disabilities. That one is good for 5 full years. And the best part, medical recertification is totally waived when you go to renew. Next is the red placard. This is for temporary disabilities. Say you're recovering from a complex surgery. These are valid for up to 12 months, and yeah, you will need a new medical certification every single time you apply for that one. Finally, we have the green placard, which is for institutions and organizations that regularly transport folks with disabilities. And honestly, here is the absolute best takeaway from this whole setup. No matter the color, Virginia issues all of these completely free of charge. Access simply isn't restricted by a direct state fee. Pretty great, right? Now, if you spend any time on commercial medical sites, you might stumble across a super common myth claiming these permanent blue decals expire in 4 years. Actually, scratch that. They're just confusing the 4-year expiration of a standard driver's license with a disabled parking placard. Because the Virginia Code is crystal clear on this. You get 5 full years of validity. Moving right along to Section 2, the medical certification gateway. Who exactly is authorized to sign off on these crucial forms? So before you can even get a placard, you need a medical pro to vouch for your condition, right? But Virginia regulates exactly who can sign that paperwork. Specialists like podiatrists and chiropractors, they are strictly limited by law to their specific medical land. Meaning, a podiatrist can certify a severe foot impairment, absolutely, but they cannot sign off on a cardiovascular or cognitive condition. On the flip side, physicians, nurse practitioners, and PAs have the authority to certify all qualifying conditions across the board, from oxygen dependency to autism spectrum disorders. Now, you might be wondering, what happens if I live in Virginia, but my doctor is right across the state line? Well, the DMV absolutely accepts out-of-state certifications to accommodate cross-border healthcare. But here is where the state security apparatus goes into overdrive. Frontline DMV workers literally have to manually verify the exact numbering format of those out-of-state medical licenses. If your Maryland doctor's license doesn't start with an H or a D followed by exactly 5 digits, the DMV rep has to kick the application back or call the provider directly. It's a fascinating layer of manual auditing, just double-checking the automated systems. All right, Section 3, the dual-track renewal system. Let's talk about what happens when that permanent placard actually expires. The Virginia DMV essentially runs a dual-track system to make your life a little easier. If your address is current in their database and your record is totally clear, a brand new placard might just magically show up in your mailbox without you lifting a finger. This usually happens about 45 to 60 days before the old one expires. But, and this is a big but, if you've moved and haven't updated your address, that whole automated system hits the brakes to stop a secure credential from going to the wrong house. In that case, you bump over to the manual pathway, meaning you got to do it online, by mail, or by walking into a DMV office. And if you do go the in-person route, you actually won't be walking out with a shiny new plastic placard. Because manufacturing is outsourced for maximum security, the DMV rep gives you this highly specialized orange paper receipt. But don't worry, it's not just a basic piece of paper. It's a legally valid temporary credential. It instantly grants you 15 days of parking privileges while you wait for the real plastic placard to show up in the mail. It bridges the gap perfectly. Now, here is a really cool hidden DMV operational quirk that could actually save you a few bucks. Let's say you lose your permanent placard. Bummer, right? If it has more than 2 months of validity left, the DMV processes it as a replacement, and that's going to cost you a $10 administrative fee. But if you lose it within 2 months of its expiration date, agents are explicitly instructed to process it as a 5-year renewal instead. And since standard renewals are free, you get a brand new 5-year placard without paying that $10 fee. It's a surprisingly pragmatic policy, so you aren't charged right before a free renewal is due anyway. Okay, Section 4, Special Plates and Veterans. What if you don't really want to deal with a hanging tag? For single vehicle owners with permanent disabilities, honestly, constantly hanging and taking down a placard can be a huge hassle. Enter the integrated HP license plate. This completely eliminates the need for a placard because the international symbol of access is stamped right on the metal. And you know what's fantastic? The DMV totally cuts the red tape here. They waive the need for a redundant medical form if you already have an active permanent credential on file. Plus, your parking privileges just automatically extend every time you renew your standard vehicle registration. It's super seamless. Virginia also has some specialized coordinated pathways for disabled veterans. It requires Form VSA 54, and it has to be signed directly by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Now, normally, the cost is just a $10 annual fee on top of your normal registration. But, and this is absolutely crucial, veterans meeting the criteria for severe service-connected disabilities, like the loss of a limb, total blindness, or 100% permanent and total VA rating, they receive these special plates completely exempt from annual registration and plate fees for one personal vehicle. Finally, Section 5, Rules, Enforcement, and Penalties. Let's look at how the Commonwealth protects these heavily valued spaces from black market abuse. So, holding one of these placards is a privilege, and it comes with some incredibly strict display rules. When you're parked, it has to hang from the rearview mirror with the information facing outward to the rear. But when the car is in motion, you absolutely must take it down. Why? Because a giant swinging piece of plastic creates a massive visual blind spot that genuinely causes accidents. But here is the most misunderstood rule of the whole shebang. You can't just hang the placard. The actual authorized holder has to be in the vehicle. The state explicitly mandates that you carry your corresponding non-photo placard ID card with you. Law enforcement officers have every right to demand that card just to prove the placard in the window actually belongs to you. And trust me, if you ignore those rules, it gets really expensive really fast. If you park in one of those striped access aisles, which, remember, literally blocks wheelchair ramp deployment, or if you decide to loan your placard to a family member who isn't disabled just so they can grab a premium spot at the grocery store, you're looking at traffic infractions that carry fines up to a staggering $500. And on top of that, the DMV can immediately revoke your privileges entirely. No way you want to risk that. But the state draws a hard line between casual misuse and outright fraud, and they have a zero-tolerance policy for the latter. We're talking about things like creating a counterfeit placard, altering an expiration date, or lying to your doctor to get one. That is not just a parking ticket, folks. That is a Class 2 misdemeanor. We're talking a criminal offense, punishable by a $1,000 fine and up to 6 months in jail. The law literally does not mess around when it comes to counterfeiting these credentials. So, there you have it. We've seen how a few simple lines of Virginia code set the foundation for this elaborate, multi-layered system of colors, medical audits, and intense enforcement. I mean, from checking the exact digit formats on out-of-state medical licenses to legally mandating you carry an ID card, the administrative framework is kind of wild. But it leaves us with a really important question. Ultimately, do these super strict regulations and severe penalties actually ensure that accessibility is preserved exclusively for those who truly need it? Or does the intense bureaucracy still end up creating frustrating barriers for the vulnerable? It's a really complex balance of security and care. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we decode another complex system.